Today, I'm going to go over a 2-year review on our small greenhouse. We've had our small greenhouse now for 2 years. It's been through 2 winters here in Missouri, and this would be the 3rd summer. We set it up in the spring, it went through a summer, a winter, a summer, a winter, and now another summer. And as you could probably see, it's looked better. The first year, and even last year, was fine. Early on, we had a couple of issues that I'll go over here, but just this spring in March, we had a pretty bad hailstorm, and I'll get some better shots here, but as you can see, we have a whole panel missing here. Hello. And there are lots of holes in the roof, and that's from the hail damage. We had hail around golf ball size. Took a toll on our vehicles. We're getting a new roof put on here in the next couple of days on the house, and that's one of the reasons why I want to do this review, because unfortunately the greenhouse is going to get disassembled. When the roofers are here with their dumpster, it's going to go into the garbage. Insurance did cover the loss of the greenhouse, but again, we only paid about $275 for this 2 years ago. So it's done its job well, and it would be a purchase that I would do again. There are a couple of things that I know now that I would have taken consideration before, and I'll pass those along. Let's go ahead and start with an overall review of the greenhouse and how we used it. So we set it up in the first season for our seedlings to come out of the germination area in the basement out here to the greenhouse, and that's the way that we used it. I have a video on the assembly of this greenhouse. It is a daunting assembly for sure, because the instructions are just terrible. But if you're going to get this greenhouse, there's a video on how to assemble it. And then I did a few upgrades to it, and those upgrades I'll be removing. Some of those upgrades I'll be removing before it gets thrown away. So right after assembly, I made this base for it, and the floor is just framed with 4x4s, and inside is just cedar fence pickets as the flooring. And the idea behind that is it adds weight to the greenhouse, and I have never had any problems with wind blowing it over. In fact, I'm pretty sure that the greenhouse would itself break before it tipped over. It's very heavy with that base on there. One of the next things we did is we added these wheels to the bottom that you're supposed to be able to step on, and it raises it up. And my thinking at the time was, well, it's here on our patio. If we needed to free up some space in the patio, we could put the wheels down and roll it to a different location on the patio. Great idea in theory. In practice, we never moved it. It stayed right there, and we never even engaged the wheels. The wheels may or may not be something that you would need in your application. The next thing that we added was a temperature controlled, like passively smart actuator for the vent. As it warms up, the vent opens, and as it cools down, the vent closes. It does this on its own. It's a temperature controlled hydraulic. So as the hydraulic warms, it opens, and as it cools, it's closed. Pretty simple idea. That's why I call it passive smart. Don't have to do anything electronically to make it work. It just works, and it worked really well. One of the next upgrades was an exhaust vent, and it's over here on the side to pull out hot air. Even when the vent's open, it gets very, very hot. I think my highest recorded temperature inside was around 130 degrees, and that's even with the vent open and the exhaust fan blowing. I added some smart feature to it through my home automation system, where I would get an alert that if I needed to come out and open the door to allow some excess heat. But usually in those times, I didn't have anything in the greenhouse because everything was out in the garden. We did keep a couple of tropicals in here over last summer. The exhaust fan honestly didn't make much. It would do a 1 or 2 degree difference, and that's about it. So the vent, again, good in idea. In practice, wasn't completely successful. And then on the inside, you can see is I put a shelf in for the plants to go on. So we had big plants on the floor, smaller plants, seedlings and things on the shelf on top. Now, as for what we did in the wintertime, we overwintered many of our plants inside the greenhouse. And I have a heater for the greenhouse with a controller that would keep it at a certain temperature range, and it worked really well. So I would keep the greenhouse at around 45 degrees, and we had weeks of negative 10 degrees, actually 2 winters in a row, and it held that temperature quite well. The heater would run for a minute, stay off for about 2, run for a minute, go off for about 2. But I insulated the inside of the greenhouse walls. The only thing I left exposed was the ceiling, so the sun could still warm in the daytime. Here's what the insulation that I used. It's this solar insulation. I got this at a big box store by the roll, and then I just cut it to fit inside every panel. So it insulated the walls, and it was able to reflect the sunlight that was coming in from the roof to inside the greenhouse. By the end of the winter, the plants that we had in here were gigantic. We had a rosemary in here that bloomed. We had citronella that got gigantic and it bloomed. We put a small monstera in here. By the end of the winter was a huge monstera. And then lots of other little potted plants and herbs and things that we were able to use throughout the winter. Right after I got it assembled and on the platform, we had some gusting winds. And I'll tell you that every time the wind picked up, it would blow every single panel out of this left side as I'm looking at it. The roof panels and the side panels. And they would go in our yard and in the neighbor's yard. And one was even all the way across in another neighbor's yard. It took me almost a day to find. So I spoke in my assembly video, or maybe the upgrade video, that I was going to do some cross supports to kind of strengthen it up. As you can see, there's a lot of movement in it. This side I didn't do anything to. This side, whenever I replace the panels, probably for the third time, I put just regular silicone caulking in the tracks that these go in, and it is solid on this side. So any panel that blew out from then on, I added caulking into the channel and then added it back in there, and it locked it up. It was tight as can be. As you can see the difference here. No caulking and caulking. Huge difference, huge difference. So that was the first, right off the bat. It was within the first week we had it set up. It was just getting blown to bits almost every day. It was not very much fun. But none of the panels got damaged during that process. The upgrades that I talked about, the only upgrade that I would suggest is the automatic opening vent. The floor could be needed if you needed it to be heavy to keep it from being blown around. But you could easily stake this to the ground if you weren't on a concrete pad, or use some cable ties to put it to anchors to the ground. That's up to you. But for sure, the automatic opener, I'll add links. I had power out here to it via an extension cord for the heater and whatnot. It did its job that a greenhouse is supposed to do. It kept it warmer whenever my plants were ready to come outside, but it was still too cool to put them in the garden. It allowed my seedlings to mature an extra month outside with sunlight, proper temperature, and I even had a fan in there for the airflow and turbulence. If I needed a small greenhouse again, I would probably purchase this. In the future, I will probably purchase a bigger one. This one is the 6-foot by 4-foot version of this. They have a 6-foot by 8-foot version that I could have easily filled with plants, because this thing in the wintertime was packed with plants. You know, like I said, we even had a rose bush in a container in here, and it bloomed throughout the whole year. A petunia we put in here, it bloomed out through the whole winter. It was pretty amazing. So this past winter, we had plants in here. We had the hailstorm in March. We lost a panel, got a bunch of holes in it. I say that it looks like Yosemite Sam was in there having a blast with his pistols in the air. But after they blew the holes in it, we lost a panel. We did lose some plants because in that same storm, we had some not quite freezing, but pretty close to freezing, and the plants that we had in there did not like it at all. It was a huge shock on them. The heater just couldn't keep up, and well, as you can see, it was well ventilated at that point. So, overall review. It's a good greenhouse for its purpose. One more thing that I'd like to add here in its what would be the third summer. It's just today, June the 3rd. So the panels that are on the roof became very brittle. And this probably, when we had the hailstorm, increased the odds of the hail actually punching through. So the ceiling parts became quite brittle, and just from the UV sun, you can almost, yeah, I can poke my finger through in a few places. So the UV did degrade the panels on the roof for sure. There's some hail damage on the side also. UV definitely degraded the panels over time. So if you're gonna get this greenhouse, if you're gonna have it for 2, maybe 3 years, that's what it's good for. Prolonged use, this isn't gonna be something that you're gonna set up and use forever. The panels are plastic polycarbonate, and they just degrade in the sunlight. In the summertime, if you didn't have anything going on in the greenhouse, you weren't using for anything, and you wanted to put some sort of cover over it to protect it from those summer UV rays, that would probably be a good idea. You could probably prolong the use for 1 year, 2 years maybe. So if you're going to use it for a few years, it's the perfect solution. Long-term use, not so much. If you have a lot of plants to go in there, probably not the best. Look for one that's a little bit larger. Just a quick review of the greenhouse that we've had for just about 3 seasons. We received some hail damage, and unfortunately, we're going to have to dismantle it and get rid of it. All of the upgrades that I spoke about, the hydraulic opener, the wheels, the heater, the controller, the fans, everything. I'll put links to those down in the description, and you know, choose what you think will work for you. Like I said, the wheels, great idea, but we never really used them. The vent hydraulic, perfect, get it, that's a must. And fans, if you're gonna have plants in there, you're gonna need fans for ventilation, easy. If you're interested in the other videos for the greenhouse, the assembly and then the upgrade video that I did later on, I'll put links to those below. Go check those out. Thanks for watching this video. If you've liked it, go ahead and click that thumbs up button, subscribe if you're not already, and come on back next time as we keep on working toward a better Terra.